And friends, I think most of you are at least somewhat aware of the struggle in Boston of the Boston school bus drivers and the community against Veolia, this transnational corporation that is got a reputation for union busting and collaborating with governments of all sizes and privatization and all sorts of inhumane, anti-poor, anti-union, anti-worker policies. If you're not, I suggest you read not only the latest issue of Workers' World, but go back a few issues and you could follow the struggle. I want to say that, naturally, the party has a special concern for this struggle in Boston. Why? Because our party was instrumental in forming the Boston School Bus Drivers Union. And we know many people. We have a long history. More than 90% of the drivers are Haitian. That alone has a special international quality and a special militancy to the union. And of course, some of our members, some of Workers' World Party comrades are in the union and in the leadership of the union. So naturally, we are on a personal level, organizationally concerned with this struggle. But it's not just the personal that is the basis for our concern. We believe that this struggle against this union busting attempt by Veolia has local, national, and international significance. Not only because it's part of a pattern, which some of you are more aware than others, but everybody knows generally what's going on. It's a union busting period in the epic of capitalist decay. But this union in particular, which is either one of the most militant locals in the country, or maybe the most militant local over many decades as far as defending its workers' rights, defending the contract, not just being into business unionism or service unionism, but being a shining example of revolutionary militancy in the class struggle. And we believe, certainly we have reason to believe, that this is one of the reasons why the bourgeoisie, locally and beyond locally, has targeted them. Indeed, as you will recall, not only the company is trying to get rid of the leadership so it can more easily bust the union, but the mayor of Boston has called for the firing of the leadership, including our comrades. With that preface, let me start with the bad news, but it's not a surprise, and the comrades and the union were expecting it. As a matter of fact, we've been expecting it all week. This afternoon, I think a little bit after noon, both comrades, Steve Gillis and Steve Kirschbaum, got termination notices. They were fired. Let me first say, again, that they totally expected this. They expected it to happen a few days ago. And the workers expected it, so no one is shocked. Everybody's morale is strong, and they're concerned with the next step. And this is not the end. This is far from the end of this battle. The comrades have a grievance procedure and other legal avenues which to pursue their rights and to get rehired, to reverse the firing. As of this hour, I don't think, and I do not know whether the other three workers of the five workers who have been suspended and who there have been charges against and who have been the subject of phony baloney hearings over the past 4 days, I don't know if any more people have been fired. I don't think so, but let me just say I don't know. Just as of now, I don't know. in addition to the grievance procedures that the comrades have, and the other workers, will have access to, that's just legality. That's technicality, and it's very good to understand it, very good to have a good lawyer, and they're working on that. But what will be decisive is the level of struggle. Number one, will the workers stay with the leaders who have been terminated to win their jobs back? And signs are very excellent that will be the case. The other thing is, to what extent will we and other allies in the labor movement, in the progressive movement, etc., be able to nationalize and even internationalize the struggle against viola? And we've been strategizing around that. And we've got lots of plans. And I'll talk about the next step in a few minutes. But the first thing I want to go over just briefly is what happened this week. It was quite amazing. I had the privilege, the opportunity to be up there for a few days. We thought that our comrades and perhaps other leaders that we work closely with in the school bus union would be fired on Monday. There was a hearing scheduled by the company that was to last all day Monday. And we thought that was when, the hatchet was going to come down. What happened is that there was an occupation of the yard just a few yards away from the meeting where the hearing was being held. Not far from where about the distance of where I'm standing to the end of this room. Not a long distance, which means that not only the workers, but also the company and its lawyers could hear what was going on outside of the hearing. And that occupation by 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., turned into, between 400 and 500 workers. A lot of workers, a big percentage of the entire workforce of the school bus drivers in Boston. And they lost their nerve. The company said, well, okay, we'll adjourn and we'll meet again. And it was just, the atmosphere was just electric, comrades. And you could certainly understand why no bosses wanted to fire anybody that day, because they were worried whether they'd be able to get out of the office if they had fired the workers then. So they tried to maneuver, and they called for another hearing, or a continuation of the hearing the following Thursday, which was yesterday. And we all realized the temporary victory, but we also realized that it was a maneuver. They called for a hearing a few days from Monday, Halloween. A lot of the workers are parents. Some of the children may want to go out and trick or treat. It's a time when a lot of parents feel the responsibility, certainly the pressure, to be at home with their children. The weather forecast was rain, and it was clear that viola said, well, you got a good showing Monday, but can you bring these workers back? And lo and behold, there was the hearing yesterday. It lasted for 3 or more hours, but by earlier in the evening, the crowd, just a few yards outside the hearing, was about the same size it was on Monday. I think larger and angrier. Anybody who knows anything about getting workers to come out knows how significant this is. 2 days later, the workers come out, and they're even angrier, and they're even louder. And so what the company did was, they said, well, we can't have this hearing in this atmosphere of intimidation. And they cut off the hearing. They closed the hearings. And they left it open how things would proceed. And okay, that was another temporary victory. But to no one's surprise, this afternoon, our comrades got the notices firing them. So the struggle continues. What's next in terms of the mass struggle? And we have some responsibility in this, in New York, as well as comrades and allies and, trade unionists around the country, maybe even the world. What they have proposed from Boston is that we turn the Saturday after next, not tomorrow, but November 9th, that we turn November 9th into a day of solidarity with the Boston school bus drivers and the demands that they have, first and foremost, the rehiring of the leaders who were fired, and the dropping of charges. And so what we must begin doing, if we're to take this request seriously, is figuring out where we're going to have that demonstration and organizing for it. Veolia has several offices. We visited one a few weeks ago. Maybe that will be the same one that we go to. And that one is in near Penn Station, between 30 and 31st Street, I think, on 7th Avenue. One of their energy satellite companies is there. Maybe somebody has a better idea. But we'll have to determine what time. I'm not going to say that now. Just monitor your email and text. What time we're going to be there. And we have to get more trade unionists and more community activists and more of the movement, whether it's Occupy Wall Street, whether it's People's Power Assembly, whether it's May 1st. Get them out there to show support for this struggle. But that's next Saturday, November 9th. And it will be the responsibility of other Workers' World Party branches and places where we have friends and allies to do the same thing. Also, there is an effort underway to get representatives of the ATU local that carried out the recent, was forced into actually, the recent strike against the city, that's the New York school bus drivers, to get some significant representation from those workers to maybe either come up in vans or even a bus to go to Boston for that day. And we're working on that. So November 9th is a big day. I want to reiterate, we know what happened. It was expected. We had planned for it. And now we are reacting. And in terms of the mass struggle, the biggest reaction will be 1 week from tomorrow. And that will be November 9th. If comrades have more questions or comments on this, we can deal with that in a few minutes. Let me say that just a few hours ago, a handful of us were demonstrating in front of the Food Stamp Center, Waverly Food Stamp Center, near Fifth Avenue on 14th Street. Why? Because today, November 1st, was the date that a vicious anti-poor wave of cuts to food stamps went into effect. They make it seem like it's small. I think the cut's supposed to be $5 billion. But actually it affects everybody that's on food stamps, which is close to 50 million people. And by the way, that number officially has doubled since 2007. And it will at least cut several meals a week for each member of a family of 3 or 4 or 5. So this is going to have a real effect. People are going to go to bed hungry because of this cut. What's more important is to realize it's just step one. There's a bigger cut coming probably in early January, and it comes along with an end to the federal extension of unemployment benefits, which ends January 1st. So as you see more people being unemployed, as we deal more and more with underpaid or low-wage workers who are very much dependent on this. Actually, I want to talk about that a little bit later, but because that's very important for us. It's not just the abject poor whose ranks are growing, retirees, single mothers, homeless people who are dependent for their meals on food stamps. It's also a growing percentage of people who have jobs, particularly low-wage jobs, not only in fast food, although depending on food stamps is so big in fast food jobs that McDonald's actually advises its workers to apply for food stamp. when they make any noises talking about the minimum wage or $1 or $1.50 above the minimum wage that they make, and the fact that so many of them on top of that can only work part-time, they don't even have full-time jobs. McDonald's actually, in its hotline, shows them how to apply for food stamps. So you can see on another level, this is not just a blow to those who have no other sources of income. It's also a wage cut, which is really the way of looking at it no matter who's affected. It is a wage cut for almost 50 million people. And this is important to take note of because it becomes a part of our struggle to raise the minimum wage and also to help in the mass organization of underpaid workers. And this is the final part of my report tonight. October 24th was a big success here in New York. It also was a success in Baltimore, in LA, and a number of other places that responded to the call to do something on the 75th anniversary of the first minimum wage, 25 cents. For those of you who couldn't make it out to Herald Square last Thursday, let me tell you, I mean, some of what you've seen on the tape show it, but it wasn't the size of the crowd, although the size was very respectable. It was the response that we got from the public. Sometimes you're doing something, and it might as well be as though you're just advertising another product for people to buy, and you know that's the way people to relate to what you're doing. But that was not the case. When workers came by, they stopped, and there was a look in their eyes, and the vibe from their body, and the look in their face that this was something that we're interested in. We were connecting with hundreds and thousands of workers in Herald Square. And just on 34th Street, between 8th and 5th Avenue, there are 60 stores of varying sizes, restaurants, drugstores, retail stores, that pay workers slave wages. So it was a pretty good place to have it. The cops would not give us a sound permit to be at 34th Street and 6th Avenue where we wanted to be. So we said, the hell with your sound permit. We'll just do a mic check. And we were there anyway. And one can debate whether it would have been more effective. It's always nice if your sound, you know, is bigger, more people can hear it, they can hear it farther away. But I must say, after saying that not having a sound permit did not seem to diminish our effectiveness that much, because we were able to gather a crowd. We had nice placards and banners, and we had a little ladder, and it was just electric. It was real. Something was happening. We had representatives from a number of organizations that are involved in organizing low-wage workers, Fast Food Forward, the Coalition for a Real Increase in the Minimum Wage, you know, as well as just people who came off the street. And of course, the highlight of it was our flash mobs that went into low-wage employers. It was at least 5 of them, I think. Was it 5? At least 5 of them, including Dwayne Reed, what you saw. But we also went into Burger King. We also went into the Gap, and you know, and Foot Locker. And you know, sometimes it wasn't just 2 or 3 people. Sometimes it was as much as 20 people who were going into these places, going downstairs into the basement, going upstairs, marching around. And, you know, some of us were outside sort of doing what we had to do to maintain the march. But the comrades and friends who went inside, their general report was that the reaction of the workers was very favorable. A lot of thumbs up, a lot of smiles. Even some of the managers, which most of whom are shift managers, which don't make that much money. You know, it's you got to be up on some higher management level before your salary is really different than, you know, a cashier. Even they were sort of friendly and sort of going through the motions. Well, I'm for you, but you know, I really hope that you leave and blah blah. You know, whatever. You know, so I mean, it was just tremendous. It was just tremendous that we were able to do that. I think it's a sign of how defensive the police and the capitalist system is about the horror and the crime of these slave wages, that they didn't feel as though they could do anything more in terms of stopping us from having these flash mobs, these solidarity delegations to low-wage workers go into these stores. And it certainly is an incentive to do it more. I want to say this, comrades. Even though we were demanding $15 an hour, and it was the 75th anniversary of the minimum wage, that was just a part of the strategy. The more important part of the strategy was this. We were testing whether we could help forge another front in the struggle of underpaid workers. Perhaps right now in the fast food industry, also in box store retailers like Walmart's, but also in the many other places where you have workers who are making minimum wage or $1 or $2 above, which is everywhere. They're all over the place. We were testing the possibility of forging another popular front in this struggle. Why? This is a big development, comrades. Some people have compared it historically to the struggle to organize auto and steel in the 30s. You know, that was a game changer. And it happened during the Depression, not in a time of, quote unquote capitalist prosperity, although a lot of people were making profits, don't kid yourself. But right now, certainly not the only place, but a big place that workers are beginning to organize. Lots of workers are being oppressed. Lots of workers are being exploited. The unemployed more than anybody else. But we have to give or pay special attention to those workers who are beginning to fight back. And that is underpaid workers in these two areas right now. Fast food restaurants and big box store retailers. It's going to spread. This is a big class-wide social development. And the party has to answer this question. What are we going to do in response to it? Actually, it opens up opportunities that I think heretofore were not available to revolutionaries and to the left. Some have pointed this out. Unlike big factories, which of course have an advantage in terms of organizing the workers, because you have hundreds, sometimes thousands of workers in one place. And you go, and this is what they found in the formation of the CIO. We turned that dynamic against the capitalist system, and the militants were able to organize the unions. Now we're talking about smaller factories, a McDonald's, a Wendy's, a Burger King, a Pizza Hut. Some of them, especially the ones who are 24 hours, they have 3 shifts, at least 3 shifts. A big store might have 15 workers working at one time. A small store may have half of that, But check this out. Think about it. It's not a factory way out somewhere, a couple of hundred factories, which is a lot of factories, for GM and Ford, a Chrysler in the old days. These fast food restaurants are all over the place. You cannot walk down the street without tripping over one. McDonald's alone has almost 20,000 stores in this country. Maybe 300 of them in New York alone. And then you add Wendy's and Burger King and all those other places. And actually, I'll just parrot this because I don't know what we think about it, but some of the fast food forward organizers who are supported by the Service Employees International Union, the way they're thinking about Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's is that just like Ford, Chrysler, and GM were the big 3, and if they could get them in the day, in the 30s, with the sit-ins and so forth, and the occupations, then the rest of the industrial infrastructure would sort of follow suit. Some of them are thinking if they can get McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's, then that's sort of the GM, Ford and Chrysler of today. I don't know whether that's completely an analogy, but it is interesting. And at least it underscores the fact that these low-paid workers, these underpaid workers, are the workers that are showing signs of being on the move. They didn't have a general strike in the usual fashion or in some traditional fashion at the end of August where all the stores were locked down. No, they weren't able to do that. But what they did do, comrades and friends, in about 60 cities, they had workers walk off the job. They had workers, thousands of workers walked off the job. And I'll tell you, for them, under present circumstances, that's pretty damn bold. That's pretty damn militant. And who are these workers? Actually, more and more, they defy any description because a lot of older workers who never thought they'd be, a cashier in a fast food place and maybe even had been lucky enough at one point not so long ago to have a union wage somewhere, they're fighting for jobs. And where are they getting them? They're getting low-paid jobs, wherever it is. So it's not just the stereotype of a 16 to 21-year-old high school or college student who needs a part-time job so they'll have some change in their pocket on the weekends. It's no longer that. You have workers of every age and race and gender working in these places. However, especially in the cities, it remains predominantly black and brown and young. And so if you're talking about doing outreach politically to millions of black, brown, young people, it's an important struggle. It's a very, very important struggle. So what we have done is, and I'm going to leave it as a question. I think that's honest. I think that's fair. Because it's really up to us as a party to determine what kind of importance, what kind of priority we attribute to it and how we act accordingly. We have demonstrated. October 24th was a big step. We have demonstrated that there is a basis for opening up a mass militant front to aid and abet these millions of workers who are accessible, more accessible than any other workforce, in rich neighborhoods, in shopping neighborhoods, in ghettos, wherever you go, in the suburbs, they're in your face, these places. See? We have an opportunity to open up another front. Why is that front so necessary? The unions that are doing this, I'm not in the position, frankly, to assess how effective they've been. I think there are some people in the labor movement who, for whatever reason, have not taken their efforts seriously yet. On the other hand, we have to say that no one has tried this before. So you have to give some kudos a little bit to SEIU and UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers. What we know is that no one has tried to organize these workers before. Why? Because the union movement for decades and decades and decades always tried to organize manufacturing at the top, those workers who were easiest to organize. There are exceptions, but I mean there's been such an unspoken taboo against trying to organize McDonald's, or a place like Walmart's. But now it's starting. It's not altruism. It's not because some union leaders all of a sudden woke up yesterday and were militant. It is the global capitalist crisis that is forcing the labor movement towards these low-wage workers, many of whom are predominantly black and brown and women. It is a global phenomena, and it is part of the labor movement's struggle to survive that's forcing them toward these workers. So back to my challenge. What the party has to determine is, do we want to take advantage of this opportunity to open up a mass front to help organize these workers? At least initially, we're going to do that. At our People's Power Assembly meeting the other night, we agreed that at least one day a month, whatever else we were doing, we would plan an activity that was around supporting the organization of underpaid workers, whether it be McDonald's or whether it be Walmart's. I think on what they call Black Friday, the day after, the day of mourning, really, which is the 29th, I think, of November. I think some of us will be going out to Walmart's in New Jersey. Was it Secaucus? Yeah. And maybe, we haven't figured it out yet, but maybe for those who for whatever reason can't go to Secaucus, maybe we'll go to 34th Street again. There was a lot of interest in going back to 34th Street. Then there was talk about going different places. We'll figure this all out. But what we have to sort out, and we have a little time, but not that much time. Does Workers' World Party want to seriously take on the challenge of opening up a new front that is not based on union initiative, not based on what the liberals are doing and whatever legislation they have for a minimum wage, which generally we all support, but based on finding ways to help the organizing of underpaid workers on a level unprecedented in the history of capitalism and the United States, if not the world.